She was cleaning tables alone, long after everyone had left, long after the laughter had faded, and long after the world had forgotten she existed. Every night she wiped away other people's mess, while silently carrying a life that had already broken her. No one knew her name. No one cared about her story, until one night a single father walked in, holding his little boy's hand, with tired eyes and nowhere else to go. He didn't ask for help. He asked her something so simple, yet so unexpected. And in that moment, everything changed. Because sometimes it only takes one question to turn a stranger into family and a broken life into something beautiful. Stay with me, because this story will remind you that kindness still exists, and it can change everything.
The night smelled like bleach, cold fries, and something quietly breaking inside her. She moved from table to table with numb hands, wiping away crumbs that didn't belong to her life, but somehow felt like they did. The restaurant had emptied hours ago, yet she was still there, alone under flickering lights that hummed like they were tired of staying alive. Outside, the city had gone quiet, but inside her chest, a storm had been raging for years. No one noticed her. No one ever did. And maybe that was the hardest part. Not the long hours, not the aching back, not even the hunger she sometimes ignored, but the invisible weight of being forgotten. Before we go further, if you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the quiet miracles that change lives, take a moment to like this video, comment your thoughts, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to the channel. Because stories like this, they remind us what truly matters. Her name was Ayesha, though most people never asked. To them, she was just the cleaner, the girl who wiped tables after their laughter had faded. She was 23, but life had carved lines into her soul that made her feel twice that age. Every night she stayed until the last chair was flipped. Every morning she woke before the sun, and in between she survived. That word, survived, had become her entire identity. Ayesha hadn't always lived like this. There was a time when she believed in dreams. She had once imagined finishing her education, becoming a teacher, maybe even building a small home where laughter echoed instead of silence. But life had other plans. Her father's sudden illness, the mounting hospital bills, and his eventual passing had torn her world apart. Her mother followed soon after, not by death, but by disappearance into a distant relative's home where Ayesha was never truly welcomed. And so she ended up here, working, enduring, existing. That night, like many others, she was finishing late. The manager had already left, the kitchen staff gone, and the doors locked. Only the dim lights and her quiet footsteps filled the space. She wiped the same table twice, not because it needed it, but because she didn't want to think about where she would go after. Home wasn't really home. It was a small rented room with peeling paint, a broken fan, and a mattress that had long forgotten comfort. It was a place where silence screamed louder than any noise. As she moved to the last table near the window, she paused. There was a child's drawing left behind, a small piece of paper with crayon lines, messy, colorful, imperfect. It showed a stick figure family holding hands under a bright yellow sun, 2 adults, 1 child, and above them a crooked heart. Ayesha stared at it longer than she should have. Something about it hurt. Something about it felt impossible. She gently picked it up, brushing her thumb over the crayon marks as if they held warmth. For a moment she imagined what it would feel like to belong somewhere, to be part of something that simple, that whole. Her chest tightened. She folded the paper carefully and slipped it into her pocket. Just then, she heard a soft knock on the glass door. Her heart skipped. No one came back this late. Slowly she turned. A man stood outside, holding the hand of a small boy. The child looked sleepy, his head resting against the man's arm, while the man himself looked exhausted in a way she recognized instantly. Life had not been kind to him either. She hesitated. The doors were already locked. She wasn't supposed to open them. The manager had been clear about that. But something about the way the boy leaned into the man, something about the quiet desperation in his eyes. She walked toward the door. For a moment, they simply looked at each other through the glass, two strangers carrying invisible burdens. Then she unlocked it. The man stepped inside with a soft thank you, his voice low and grateful. The child clung to him, barely awake, his small fingers gripping tightly as if afraid of being left behind. Ayesha stood there awkwardly, unsure of what to say. She wasn't used to conversations. People usually spoke around her, not to her. The man glanced around the empty restaurant, then back at her. There was hesitation in his eyes, like he wasn't sure if he should even ask. And then he did. He asked something so simple, yet so unexpected. He asked if she had any leftover food. For a second, Ayesha didn't respond, not because she didn't understand, but because she did, too well. She nodded slowly and walked toward the kitchen. There were a few leftovers, nothing fancy, just some rice, a bit of curry, and bread that would have been thrown away by morning. She packed it carefully, more carefully than she ever had before. When she returned, the man had seated the child at a table. The child's eyes lit up at the sight of food, but he waited. He didn't touch anything. He waited for his father. That small act hit Ayesha harder than she expected. The man thanked her again, his voice thick with emotion he was trying to hide. As they began to eat, Ayesha turned away, pretending to continue cleaning, but she couldn't ignore the feeling in her chest. It was unfamiliar, warm, painful, hopeful. For the first time in a long time, the restaurant didn't feel empty, and she didn't feel invisible. She didn't know it yet, but that simple question, that quiet moment, was about to change everything.
Ayesha tried to focus on her work, but her attention kept drifting back to them. The boy ate slowly, savoring each bite like it was something precious. The man watched him more than he ate himself, a soft, tired smile resting on his face. It was the kind of smile that came from love, not happiness, a love that persisted even when life became unbearable. Ayesha had seen many customers before, families, couples, friends, but this felt different. There was no noise, no laughter echoing loudly, no distractions, just quiet connection. It felt real. After a while, the boy's eyes grew heavier, his small head nodding as sleep claimed him. The man gently wiped his hands, lifted him carefully, and held him close. Ayesha felt something shift inside her. She didn't know why, but she stepped forward, not out of duty, not out of obligation, but because something in her heart told her to. She offered him a glass of water, and without thinking, asked if they were okay. The question surprised even her. She wasn't used to asking anyone anything. The man paused, as if weighing whether to answer honestly. Then he did. He told her just enough. Not everything, but enough. He was a single father. His wife had passed away a year ago. Since then, life had become a constant struggle, balancing work, raising his son, and trying to keep everything from falling apart. That night, he had lost his job. They hadn't eaten all day, and he hadn't known where else to go. Ayesha listened silently, because she understood. Not the exact same pain, but the same kind of loneliness, the same kind of fight to keep going when everything seemed against you. For a moment, they stood there, two strangers connected by something deeper than words. And then something unexpected happened. The boy, half asleep, murmured something softly. He asked his father if they could come back again. The words were simple, but they carried weight. Ayesha felt her chest tighten again. because she knew what it meant to have nowhere to go and to find even the smallest place that felt safe. The man looked embarrassed, apologizing quietly, but Ayesha shook her head. For the first time in years, she smiled, a small, hesitant smile, but real. She told him it was okay, more than okay. As they prepared to leave, Ayesha reached into her pocket. She pulled out the child's drawing she had found earlier. For a second, she hesitated. Then she handed it to the boy. His eyes lit up despite his sleepiness. He held it carefully like it was something valuable. And in that moment, Ayesha realized something she had forgotten. Even the smallest act of kindness can feel like a miracle to someone who has nothing. That night, as they left, something lingered in the air. Not just gratitude, not just relief, but the quiet beginning of something neither of them fully understood yet. And for the first time in a very long time, Ayesha didn't feel alone when she locked the door.
The next night, Ayesha found herself glancing at the door more often than usual. She told herself it was nothing, just habit, just curiosity. But deep down, she knew it was something more. She was waiting. And when the soft knock finally came, her heart reacted before her mind did. They had returned. The man looked just as tired, but there was something different in his eyes, something softer, something hopeful. The boy, though still quiet, seemed more awake, more alive. Ayesha didn't hesitate this time. She opened the door immediately. What started as a simple act of kindness slowly turned into a routine. They came back again and again, not every night, but often enough that the empty restaurant began to feel less like a place of loneliness and more like a quiet refuge. Ayesha would save food for them. They would sit. They would talk, slowly at first, then more openly. And little by little, 3 broken lives began to mend in the most unexpected way. Ayesha started to laugh again. It felt strange at first, like a forgotten language, but with time it became easier. The boy would show her drawings, each one filled with colors and dreams that refused to fade. The man would share small stories, nothing dramatic, just moments of survival that somehow felt meaningful. And in return, Ayesha began to open up too. She spoke about her past, her dreams, her fears, things she had buried for years. It wasn't sudden, it wasn't easy, but it was real. Then one evening, something happened that changed everything once again. The restaurant owner visited unexpectedly. Ayesha froze. If he saw them, if he found out, she could lose her job, her only source of survival. Panic crept into her chest as she quickly asked them to hide in the kitchen. Her hands trembled as she faced her employer, trying to act normal while her heart pounded wildly. The conversation felt endless, every second stretched like a lifetime. But eventually, he left. And when he did, Ayesha sank into a chair, overwhelmed. She had risked everything. For them, for people who had once been strangers. And yet, she didn't regret it, not even for a second, because somewhere along the way, they had become more than that. They had become family. A different kind of family, one built not by blood, but by kindness, by shared pain, by quiet understanding. And sometimes, those are the strongest bonds of all. Months passed. Life didn't suddenly become perfect. There were still struggles, still uncertainties, but there was also something new. Hope. The man eventually found work again, nothing big, but enough to start rebuilding. The boy started going to school. And Ayesha, she found something she thought she had lost forever. A reason to wake up, a reason to keep going, a reason to believe that life could change. Before we reach the end, if this story has touched your heart even a little, take a moment to like, comment, and share. Your support helps stories like this reach people who truly need them. And one special request, comment below, "Kindness changes lives," if you believe even the smallest act can create something beautiful.
One evening, as they sat together, the boy handed Ayesha a new drawing. This time, it wasn't just 3 figures, it was 4. He had drawn her into their world, into their family. Ayesha stared at it, her vision blurring, because for the first time in her life, she wasn't on the outside looking in. She belonged. And sometimes that's all a person really needs. Not wealth, not perfection, just a place where they are seen, valued, and loved. The restaurant was still the same. The city was still the same. Life was still uncertain. But Ayesha was no longer invisible. She was no longer alone. And all it took was one question, one moment, one act of kindness that changed everything. And if this story stayed with you, if it made you feel something real, don't forget to engage with the video, because your support keeps these stories alive and reminds the world that kindness still exists.